Assalamu alaikum dear students. Hope you all doing well. Today we are going to discuss about the hydrosphere. In our previous lecture we studied about the atmosphere and I told you about the composition of atmosphere, the importance of atmosphere, and we studied about air pollution. In today's lecture I'll tell you about the hydrosphere, that's water. We will try to learn about the composition of this very particular hydrosphere. After that, we'll be looking at water cycle and how this water gets polluted. So first of all, let's take a look at hydrosphere, what hydrosphere actually is. All the water which is present on the earth in whatsoever form, be it solid, liquid or gaseous form, it's called as hydrosphere. As you already know, this water is present on the earth in different forms. It's present in solid form, in the form of glaciers, in the form of snow. It's present in liquid form, which is the most abundant form of this water. And it's also present in the gaseous form in atmosphere in the form of water vapors. So all this water, all these forms of water, be it solid, liquid or gaseous, it's all included in hydrosphere. When we talk about the overall percentage of this water on the earth's surface, it's around 72%. That means 72% of all the earth's surface it's occupied by water. And this water is actually divided into two types, that's fresh water and marine water. First of all, let's talk about marine water. Marine water is simply salt water, which is mostly present in oceans and seas. And fresh water includes the water in the form of glaciers, the water in lakes, in rivers. This marine water is around 97% of the total, and only 3% of Earth's water is fresh. And the distribution of water on the surface of Earth, although it's 72%, the total percentage of water on the Earth is around 72%, but this water is unevenly distributed. That means at some places the water is very much abundant, but there are certain places where there is water scarcity. The availability of water actually, this decides the diversity of living organisms in that very particular region. For example, if we talk about a desert, there is water scarcity. So we will find a different type of life over there, be it plants or animals. We will find different types of animals and plants in that very particular region. But when we talk about mountains, we will find a different type of life over there. So this availability of water actually decides what type of organisms live in a particular region. So this is what we mean by hydrosphere. This was a brief introduction about hydrosphere. Hydrosphere simply, it's the water in all forms on the earth, be it solid, liquid or gaseous form. And its percentage on the earth is around 72%. Earth's surface, it occupies more than 72% of Earth's surface. And almost 97% of this total water is marine, that's salty water. Only 3% is fresh water. And this water is not evenly distributed. There are some certain areas, certain regions where water is very abundant, while as there are other areas where there is water scarcity. And the availability of water largely decides the type of life in that very particular region. Now let's talk about the importance of water for living organisms. the importance of water for living organisms. We all know that almost all living organisms, they need water. They need water for different purposes. When we talk about the importance of this water inside a living organism, the most of the cellular processes, that's the reactions which take place inside the cells, they need water as a medium. They need water as a medium. You already know about different cellular processes, so water is needed as a medium for these very particular reactions. And when we talk about the transport of materials inside the body of an organism, actually the transport of materials, it takes place in the dissolved form. What does that mean? That means these substances which are to be transported inside the body of any living organism, it takes place in the dissolved form. That very particular substance is dissolved in the water. So water acts as a carrier. It carries these substances which are dissolved in it and transports it from one part of an organism to the other. For example, if we talk about the excretion in living organisms, harmful products are produced inside living organisms which are supposed to be excreted, which are needed to be excreted out of the body. And this water plays a very crucial role in the excretion of living organisms. It dissolves these harmful waste products and takes them away from the body of the living organisms. So when we talk about the importance of water for the living organisms, we find that most of the cellular processes or most of the reactions which take place inside the body of any living organism, they need water as a medium. And transport of materials within an organism, it occurs in the dissolved form. That's the materials are dissolved in the water and they are transported from one part of that very particular organism to the other part. And it also plays a very crucial role in dissolving the harmful waste products of living organisms. So this was about the importance of water for living organisms. Now let's talk about the water cycle. First of all, let's try to understand what water cycle actually is. This water cycle is also called as hydrological cycle. First of all, we will take a look at the definition of water cycle. We will try to understand what actually we are going to read in this very particular, what we are going to discuss about in this very particular topic, that's water cycle. Water cycle can be simply defined as the continuous movement of water in the air, on the surface of and below earth. That means you already know that water is present in the air, it's also present on the surface of earth, it's also present below the earth. But this water, this is in continuous movement between the air and the surface or the ground or the below surface of the earth. So this very particular continuous movement, this is what we mean by water cycle. Now let's take a detailed look at this water cycle, how this water is actually circulated between air and the surface of earth, or how this water is circulated in different forms, that's solid, liquid and gaseous form. First of all, let's talk about the water in air, that's water vapors. First of all, let's try to understand what are the sources. The source of these water vapors are mostly evaporation, the process of evaporation, and various biological activities like transpiration and respiration. Evaporation, when we talk about evaporation, it's simply when water in the liquid form gets converted into its gaseous form by the action of sun's heat. And when we talk about transpiration and respiration, these are the biological activities which add these water vapors into the atmosphere. So these are the main sources of water vapors into the atmosphere. After that, these water vapors in the atmosphere, they get condensed to form clouds. After that, these clouds, they precipitate, and by the process of precipitation, they come down in different forms. That's rain or snow or hail, whatsoever it is. It comes down on the surface of Earth. And on the surface of Earth, there are different possibilities. First of all, let's talk about what will happen to the rain. If it comes in the liquid form, what will happen to the rain? Either it may get accumulated in different water bodies like lakes or rivers or oceans, or it can get percolated down and get deposited as underground water. The water which will come back to these rivers or oceans, again it will get evaporated and the whole process will be repeated. The water which gets percolated into the soil, it can be either used by plants or animals, or it can, by subsurface flow, it may go into the different water bodies like oceans, and again it will get evaporated and the whole process will be repeated. And when it comes down in the form of snow, the snow will also melt down, and through the rivers it will also come into the oceans, and again the whole process will be repeated. It will get evaporated, followed by condensation and precipitation, and the whole process will be repeated. So this is what we mean by water cycle. This is how this water is circulated between the atmosphere and the earth in different forms: in solid form, that's snow; in liquid form, that's the water in the lakes, oceans, rivers; or the gaseous form, that's the water vapors in the atmosphere. So in simpler words, we can say the process of continuous movement of water in the air, on the surface, and the below earth. Now let's talk about water pollution. What water pollution is, what are its different causes, and what are its different effects or consequences. First of all, let's talk about what water pollution actually is. Water pollution is when harmful substances, be it a chemical or a microbe, when they contaminate these water bodies and degrade its quality and make it toxic for living organisms, we say water is polluted. So when harmful substances, be it a chemical or a microbe, when they are added to the water bodies, we say water is polluted. Now let's talk about the causes of water pollution. What are the different causes of this water pollution? The main causes of water pollution are agricultural effluents. That's, you already know that we use different fertilizers in our crop fields. Fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides. When the water which we use in the crop fields, which is rich in these nutrients, which is rich in these very particular fertilizers, when it goes into the different water bodies, they pollute that very particular water body, be it a river, be it a lake, be it whatsoever it is. Another important cause of water pollution is industrial wastes. There are different industries which directly introduce their wastes into the water bodies and directly contaminate the water, that's pollute the water. And the other cause of this water pollution is domestic wastes. Domestic wastes These are those wastes which are produced inside our homes. And when these very particular domestic wastes are directly introduced in different water bodies, they also add to the problem of water pollution. When we talk about, there are also other reasons or causes of this water pollution, but these are the main causes of water pollution which account for a lot of this very particular problem. That's water pollution. Now let's talk about the effects of water pollution. What are the effects or the consequences? How this water pollution affects the living organisms? First of all, there's addition of undesirable substances. Some undesirable substances which actually degrade the quality of this water. These are added to these water bodies. For example, addition of some harmful chemicals or microbes which cause different types of diseases. These are added to the water by the process of this water pollution. So undesirable substances, for example, chemicals like for example mercury. If we talk about lead, mercury, they cause different types of disease in the living organisms. Or microbes, you already know there are a lot of waterborne diseases like cholera, diarrhea. These are also actually, this is also an effect of water pollution. The other thing is removal of desirable substances. That's those substances which are important to maintain the quality of water. These very particular substances, when they are lost, when they are removed, this is also an effect of water pollution. One of the most important desirable substances in the water bodies is dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen, which is important for the life, or which is important for the living organisms which are present inside these water bodies. So when this oxygen, dissolved oxygen, when its level is decreased in a water body, it directly affects the life of life of those living organisms which are present inside that very particular water body, be it a fish or be it a plant. Another one is change in temperature. Change in temperature. There is an optimum temperature of every water body, and at that temperature different living organisms can survive. But the change in temperature, actually, this also degrades the quality of water. For example, when water is used by different industries as coolant, they release this water into the different water bodies, and it's very hot, so it creates an abrupt increase in the temperature of that very particular water body. So this directly affects the life of the aquatic organisms. That's those organisms which are living inside the water bodies. So this was all about water pollution. This was actually a brief introduction about water pollution. So we are done with hydrosphere. We studied about hydrosphere. We studied about the importance of water for living organisms. And I told you about water cycle. How is water circulated between air and the surface of the earth? And after that, a brief introduction about water pollution, what water pollution is, and what are its different causes and consequences. So this is it for now. Thank you.